It is wonderful to be here. So let's have the first slide, perhaps. Thank you. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about the power of collective action, Ubuntu, and I'm going to apply a gender lens to it. As you've heard, gender is my favorite subject. And we all have a gender. In my world, it's not only about women. It's about women, men, boys, girls. It's about human beings working towards the future we want. And in this context, on Africa Day, it's about African women, girls, men, and boys working towards the Africa we want. According to Vision 2063, what we want as the people of Africa and her diaspora is an integrated, prosperous, peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. Sitting here and schooling here is a big part of that dynamic force. You who have made it to the halls of Oxford University are our pride and joy. You are the chosen daughters and sons of our soil. You have been kissed by our sun and gifted with all our talents as Africans. Starting with Christian Cole in 1877 of Sierra Leone, who is documented as the university's first African student and first Black African to take an Oxford degree. And I like the idea of take because you're not here through charity. You are here because you earned it. And you are here because you have the right to be here. Your ancestors celebrate every footstep you take here at Oxford, because now we can walk around with our heads held so high, rather than bowed in pain and in humiliation of being enslaved. Here you are being schooled to make a difference, to help our Africa rise above all its odds, a feat we can only achieve collectively. Because you are here, because we were here. Ubuntu says, I am because of you. You are because of me. We are inseparable in our quest to rise above all our odds. So today I want to focus on two sets of people whom we cannot afford to leave behind. The first one, the first number that I would like to share is this big number. Do you see how many zeros are in it? It's a huge number. It is 316 million times 1,000. It is 10% of Africa's GDP. This 31.6 billion is waiting for us to release. We are holding it hostage by gender inequality. All we have to do is just rise to the best of the African countries in gender equality, and that's the amount of money we can release into our economy. This is a figure that was calculated by McKinsey Global Institute, which I'm sure you've seen before, but I just wanted to really hit home how much it is we have in our coffers just by allowing ourselves to treat each other as equals. Women also happen to be the majority of the citizens of Africa. In the Africa region, women live an average of 4 years longer than men. The life expectancy for women is 62 years, according to the World Health Organization. Oh, the life expectancy of men is 62 years and women 75. We also have the world's richest continent as far as female entrepreneurship is concerned. We have the highest proportion of female entrepreneurs compared to any continent. Botswana leads in this, followed by Uganda and Ghana. Nigeria also ranked second globally for the number of women in professional and technical spheres. We are also the global leader in women's public leadership. So Rwanda leads us in terms of 61.3% women in parliament. And we have other countries that are not doing too badly. South Africa, 46.3%, Senegal, 43%, Namibia, 42.7%. We also are performing very well compared to other continents. In the private sector, Africa has the highest female representation in the board of any continent. We also, as African women, lift as we climb. Although we do 75% of the continent's unpaid labor, we make sure that the sweat of our brows reaches our children, our communities, and ultimately, this lifts our country because 90% of disposable income of females is spent on lifting others in terms of investment in education, health, and nutrition. The power of nutrition, you know, one of the things that still plagues our continent is something we call stunted growth. This is the nutrition that a child gets before the age of 5. That nutrition feeds the brain. It feeds the physical body. And if by the age of 5 you are undernourished, you stunt for life. You will never recover from that stunting. So the quality of food you get before 5, starting with the breast milk that you get, the milk from a mother's breast, is key. And women are a key part in making sure that we don't have stunted growth as individuals and ultimately as economies. Yet, this is us. We have currently 2 women only at the helm of countries. Tanzania, and I can see you smile from Tanzania, and Ethiopia. And getting to the helm of the countries is not magic for women. Let me perhaps tell you the story that led to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf being the first democratically elected head of state. It did not happen by magic. I don't know how many of you have seen the documentary called Pray the Devil Back to Hell. It was about the women's movement that decided, starting off with prayer, that prayer would not be enough. We really need to act in Liberia. Women were so tired of seeing their children die, their husbands slaughtered. They came together, Christian and Muslim women, and decided enough is enough. They started a campaign wherein they wore white. They decided they were wearing white. And they declared a sex strike as well. Somehow they managed in their masses to turn up to a peace talk that was happening in Ghana. between the warlords and Charles Taylor, who were really the cause of all this killing. And you know what they did? They filled the hallway that men had to use. Men were the only participants in that peace talk. They filled the hallway of that hotel that men had to use to respond to the call of nature. And they would not let anyone out until they said they had brokered peace. And those who tried to force their way, they threatened to strip. There's nothing more scary than a woman who is stripped that is not intimate to you as a man, apparently. Because those men stayed in that room until they came up with something they could agree was a peace agreement. Not only was Charles Taylor exiled, but our dear president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, became the first democratically elected female president. So this is the power of women when they've decided on collective action. The stories that led up to this, I will need the whole day to talk about them. So women are not victims. They are really a powerhouse that we are yet to release fully in our continent. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is the first woman and first African to serve as the Director General of the World Trade Organization. She's also the former finance minister of Nigeria. Her work in economics and international trade has profound impact on global policies and development. She says it best in terms of investing in women is smart economics. Investing in girls is even smarter because you catch it upstream. So in order that we have Africa rise, we must make sure that we release these billions that are held captive. We cannot do it without women, and we cannot do it without men. You know, one thing I really dislike about the way we've handled the feminist movement is that we've forgotten what it describes. It describes an equality of the sexes. It's not about women taking power from men or men taking power from women. It's not a zero-sum game. It's about growing the pie and sharing it equitably. This little girl in this picture is me 6 decades ago, more than 6 decades ago. Born to a father who, I was the first girl, I'm called the chosen one, that's the meaning of my name, but born to a man who, without our social security system in Africa called wife inheritance, would have been an orphan and had no opportunities or food to eat. You know, the Western view of wife inheritance is that it's so bad, it subjugates, but you really need to understand people's value systems to understand. You know, in America, having a social security number, people really go out of their way to have that number. It makes sure they have a roof over their head. It makes sure they have something to eat. It makes sure they even have job opportunities. Wife inheritance, in my context where I come from, my little kingdom of Eswatini, is just that. It's our social security system. And it made sure that when my father's father died, he had a home to go to. His mother was wife inherited. And he came into that household as the youngest in that family, and had an eldest brother who Because the father wanted to be fair, he got 2 scholarships from the missionaries nearby and wanted to be fair. So he took the youngest and the eldest and said, okay, you take these 2 to your school. He was suspicious of the school, but he could see there must be something in this white people missionary. They never lack food to eat. They always have more than enough to give us. Let me try it. Fast forward, those 2 men were part of the process of independence of our country. My elder father, whom in Western sense is my uncle, became the first prime minister of an independent Swaziland, now known as Eswatini. He then asked his youngest brother, he didn't have anyone else to ask because nobody else had been at school, in his family anyway, to go to New York to open up our first High Commission there in New York as a small country of Eswatini. That's how I got quality education. That's how I escaped the poverty trap of my little village called in Khetsiwe, which village some people who come from my country don't even know. You know, there's so many people who have never heard of my country, but some people in my country don't know my village. And it still has not been tarred in all these years. So imagine decades later, when I walk through the halls of the UN as a first female African chief of staff of the only entity that is mandated to help all countries around the world release these billions. What that feeling was like for me. It was profound. And I know that you all have your stories that have led you to Oxford. But let that not be the only story. Yours is a first story in a path that you will open for other Africans, is my wish and my challenge to you. This is a Form 2 student that I taught at the rural school near our homestead at Khetsiwe. Do you know that she was too shy even to take a picture with me? She said, I don't want to take a picture with you. I said, why? I'm so happy you came back and you taught at the, the school that, that I taught you at, And she said, no, I'm ashamed because you know what? Life has been so hard to me. I look older than you and you are my teacher. And life is still very hard where I come from. So one of the things I really try and do is make sure that more children who look like me, more young girls, have opportunities that we can't even fathom, we can't even dream of. You know, when I do my workshops with the ladies whom I have put into a boarding house, which is at home, I really take on the poorest young girls who show promise and give them a place that has running water, electricity, no burden of chores, for free, and is walking distance from the high school, just to give them a chance to finish high school and go to university. One of the things I struggle with is just describing what I do, trying to describe a UN to somebody who has never been out of the village. I lack the words, even in my language, to try and help them understand what the UN is. The role of chief of staff, most people do not understand it. I used to even call it chief of staff because anything would come and land on my desk. that I had to sort out. You know, trying to relate to their world in a way where they can start even changing the aspirations. When you ask them, what do they want to be when they grow up? Ordinarily, they will tell you that they want to be a nurse, or they want to marry the gentleman who has the shiniest border, we call it in East Africa. Their aspirations already cut so many possibilities out of their lives. What you cannot dream of, you cannot strive for. So a lot of my work is just around trying to help them connect with the rest of the world. Even now in the age of social media, where, you know, knowledge is free, you find them using social media to pretend they have lives that they do not have, versus trying to get to that life because it's within reach. You have proven it by being here. So as we climb the ladders of Oxford and elsewhere, let's remember where we come from and let's create more paths to and from Africa. We lift as we climb is my challenge for men and women in this room. Rising by lifting others. That's Ubuntu economics, as far as I am concerned. I think the Honorable Raila really brought this point home about our future being in our young. This Vision 2063 that we talk of, I won't be here to see it. It's really about what you can do. It's in your hands. Granted, we have not done our best as the previous generations. We've left you a world, a planet that, you know, is about to destroy itself. We have more conflict and wars than we've ever had since World War II, despite the fact that we established so many institutions to prevent us going back there. But I have my whole faith in you as the younger crowd and as the majority of Africans today. Unfortunately, where we come from, graduation does not equal employment. We are the only continent where the NEET rate, not in education, employment, or training, that is what the NEET rate is. There's a very small difference between the NEET rate of graduates and the NEET rate of high school dropouts in Africa. The time for looking for employment is gone. It's you who need to create the jobs now. And unfortunately, our educational system has not caught up with that. But we need to change our mindset and create jobs and be the champions of this renewable energy. There's no other continent that has enough, that has more sun and natural resources than ours. We cannot let other continents lead this renewable energy movement. I was so happy yesterday I met a Nigerian student who is studying renewable energy. And she was so stressed because she's thinking, my visa ends, because my course ends, I don't know what I'll do next. I'm applying for jobs here. I'm getting so many rejections. And I told her, you know what? Think of the jobs that you could create and get in your continent. She says, no, but we need, there's this lady, please stand up. It's you that I'm talking about. You are so shy. What's your name again?
My name is God's Glory.
God's Glory. Beautiful name. So I was talking to God's Glory and saying, you know what? Africa needs people like you. Open up your world to apply even in Africa, because that does not mean that you won't get the overseas experience. Now the world is a global village. You can lead an African company, you can work in an African company, and come and teach them here in England how renewable energy is done. And you can count on us to help you network within the continent. And you know what you said to me? Tell me what you said to me.
I said I wanted to get the experience here first, then go back and do what I have to do.
Yeah, but when we opened up your world to include Africa, what did you say to me?
I didn't have that in mind.
She didn't have that in mind, but now you do, right? Now you do. Thank you, God's glory. It's the little things that each of us as citizens do that will make the difference. You know, the words of another champion and daughter of Africa, Wangari Maathai, said that. She said, my little thing is planting trees. And right now, Kenya is trying to make sure that it restores all its forests. There was even a holiday recently. Kenyans are specialists at holidays. My goodness. Every time you look up, Senator, you're giving us another one. But there was recently a holiday just to plant trees because they take this mission seriously of leading on climate change. And you'll remember that they were the first African country to lead a global summit on climate change. So that is my hope and wish. Let us open more roads for Africans, and let us lead the charge for Africa rising so that we can be the sun of the world. We are the richest continent. Let's let everybody, including ourselves, know that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.